Welcome back to Just a Digital, where we talk about today's video games and the classics that inspire them. I'm Brett Clark.
And I'm Matt Keaton. And today we're sharing some tough questions that we have about the gaming community and where it goes from here.
Yep. And be sure to stay tuned for our save point this week, where we read your comments and answer your questions, all here on Just a Digital. So, Matt, the online video gaming industry last year, 2019, roughly, it was $16.9 billion in revenue. What do you think in more recent years has allowed for this explosive growth in the video game world?
It's a great question. So that's a lot of money, $16.9 billion. Wow, that's crazy. Just to think about that number, it's kind of exhausting.
Mhm.
I think the popularity exploded for a few reasons. I think social media had a lot to do with it and giving us a better insight into people's worlds, into people's gaming dens. The gaming communities have exploded and culture has just kind of taken off. I think word of mouth from years ago as gamers, we all just kind of got together and we started discovering that everybody liked the same things. And I think social media is probably primary number one example as to being the reason why it's exploded as much as it has, for sure. And I think just ease of access. Online internet's gotten better. Gaming servers have gotten more complicated and intricate and easier for them to network and develop and stuff like that. And
Mhm.
it's just made, I guess you could say, gaming a lot easier to get together for communities and for people to connect. And so I think pretty much in a nutshell, that's why it's exploded as much as it has.
Yeah. I mean, like, if you look back at like the 1970s when video games first came into the big arcade boom, like video games took the world by storm, especially in like places like Japan. Video games were ever prevalent. You couldn't get enough of them, and especially places like the United States where you started to have arcades and you had people fighting for rights to be able to produce a certain amount of games for the home consoles. Video games became something that were sought after. They were also very expensive to make. I mean, like the original NES, we talked about what it was. The cost for an NES game was about $120 by today's equivalent for one game, and most of the time, those games can be beaten within a couple of hours. And
Hmm.
I think also back then, video games weren't something you sat and devoted 50 hours, 30 hours to, whereas now I think a lot of things are faster. Where we expect our computer to be faster, we expect our smartphone to be faster. Back then, I don't think you really had that urge for speed. So there was a little bit more patience, I think, in the world, which meant that there was not really the the accelerated pace of society, meaning that you didn't have as much free time. I think like when you look at microwavable dinner, for instance, you put dinner in the microwave, you walk away for 5 minutes. There's something you want to do in that 5 minutes. Back then, preparing dinner, was almost an all day thing for like a stay at home mom. They cleaned all day, then they would prepare dinner around like 3 o'clock, and prepare dinner for 2 hours, make it, stop, finish making dinner, eating it, and then clean, and then do it all again the next day. And that's something where I think video games now that the world has gotten faster and there's more free time than ever, I think that was where really the drive for video games started coming in, was because more and more people wanted something to fill that time, TV, you know, whatever it be, to replace that lack of something to do in the form of entertainment. They wanted to replace entertainment with a lack of job, I guess, or like I don't know what the proper word is, the objective or whatever. They were trying to find something to do rather than just sit there and waste time. So whether it be a video game or be a chore, that's I think the right word I was looking for is chore. I think that then online gaming came into the question when you started having more ease of access with internet. Internet became more affordable, and just the infrastructure in the cities made it a lot easier. Once you started having, like retail stores that had like electrical terminals where you could transfer information between one store's inventory to another, that ability to have that online network was really good in the business sense. And eventually, if it's good in the business world, it comes to the consumer side of things just as nicely, you know. Um, and I think that's really what drove, eventually things like Xbox Live and stuff like that to be able to come into fruition. Was you don't always necessarily have to be at the same spot as someone else to play a game with them then. Just like you don't have to be at a store in order to check another store's inventory.
Yeah, that's in a nutshell what's really nice about online gaming nowadays. I know early on it was difficult to kind of get things going. I remember early days of playing like an original Battlefield title or like Battlefield Vietnam, the
Mhm.
original one where I mean you're trying to connect to servers and it's taking 20 minutes to half an hour to connect to a game. And you're not guaranteed at that point in that time and that technology, you're not guaranteed anything. And I know with the way the internet used to be before high speed internet, it was definitely a pain in the butt to get online to play with friends,
Mhm.
both with connection issues, with and not a lot of friends having games and PCs capable of connecting online, and video game consoles being able to all fully connect online. I think I forgot there was a statistic I read where like greater majority of video game consoles that even started at the online connectivity, such as the original Xbox. Um, the majority of the consoles were offline, and a lot of people were just playing games at home and enjoying them. And
Mhm.
so when they did finally hit mainstream and they started the Xbox Live, it didn't really take off as fast as everyone had thought it did. I mean, it really struggled, and then all of a sudden it just exploded with the first person shooters online and
Mhm.
eventually games like Diablo carrying over from PC. That Diablo was a great game that I really got into and enjoyed. I just never really could connect with people online the way I wanted to. To me, it was more like a couch co-op experience.
Mhm.
Um, one thing I'm wondering is one thing for me that I have a question for you is like I'm kind of learning this whole games as a service thing now. I
Mhm.
To bring up a perfect example, Anthem. I bit
Mhm.
into that hardcore, spent the $99, got it day one. Eric and I were pretty stupid and jumping in on that, but why I'm wondering why consumers invest so much time and money into these more or what end up happening like these short-term server-based games.
Mhm.
Why do they spend the money? What's the draw, and why do we keep falling for it?
I think the thing is that with a like a live server game or like a game as a service style game, like let's say Destiny. Destiny's kind of similar to Anthem in that regard, with content that is free. You know, they've got their free to play model, and then you can buy into it. World of Warcraft is very similar. You know, it's an MMO. I think that MMO style of expansions, packs, and stuff like that is very popular because it gives you the option to expand the game that you currently have. You know, and as a player, it's nice because I'm getting new content. As a developer, it's nice because you don't have to rebuild the game from the ground up. You just keep on expanding and making it bigger, and pretty much like Legos, building on top of what you've already constructed. Uh, so, for instance, like let's take like a PS2 game or an Xbox original game, for instance. When you go to the new console, you have to restart over and have a completely different disc in order to experience some very basic games like FIFA. You know, well, video game developers make what's called a legacy edition of their games, which they'll do is they'll take like FIFA 19 and make it for, instead of the Xbox One, make it for the Xbox 360, which is a console that's pretty much out of service. But they realize that there's still a fan base on that system. So they'll reprint the game for an older system, call it the Legacy Edition with an updated roster, you know, just so that way they can keep that demographic alive. They can still make a profit off of those people. But the benefit to that is something like that costs them money and resources to reprint the game. Whereas if you have a service game like Destiny, they could take their progress back and forth between either console, and you really don't have to remake the game at all. You can just, as long as they can access the account, they can still play it, and you can keep the experience streamlined then, instead of having to put assets aside for distribution on an Xbox One version versus a physical Xbox 360 version versus what's the actual edition versus a legacy edition, instead of just having it where both get the same disc and they just get altered experiences based on what they bought into. I think that's why it's popular, is because it makes the most sense for developers and it gives people the ability to buy content as they see fit, you know? I think that's why it's very popular. I also think the reason why people devote time to it is because the games are designed normally in an MMO structure where, random loot drops, randomized encounters and stuff like that really entice people to try and get better gear. Like Destiny, for instance, you don't need to be the best player, in Destiny 1 to do a raid if you have the Galahorn. If you got a random drop and got the Galahorn, there's a point where people would say you would need the Galahorn in order to do a raid. People would
Hmm.
specifically say on the forums, if you don't have a Galahorn, don't even bother, you know? And those were the good days of Destiny because because that was actually I got to meet a multi-tool was my first exotic, and then my second exotic was the Galahorn. And I was like, this thing's so stupid. And my buddy's like, no, no, keep it, keep it. And so I'm like, whatever. And me and him would get into so many raids just because I had a Galahorn, you know.
Hmm.
But he had probably 200 more hours in the game than I did at the end of the day versus me, where it's like just because of a random drop, I was able to play with these people who, in other words, I wouldn't have been able to based on skill, but
Hmm.
because I had a gun that was randomly dropped and would allow me to help the team in the raid, it was just uh, by dumb luck I was able to partake in most of the raids and stuff like that until they nerfed it into the ground. But like I said, this is the original days of Destiny. But I think in that regard, I think random loot, random drops, gotcha mechanics like that,
Hmm.
like loot crates, is really what keep people coming back. What about you? What do you think is really the driving factor for that?
Well, I'm a sucker for the loot crates and the
Mm-hmm.
cosmetic things, but I don't want to spend my own personal money on it. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
cheapskate.
I get you on that.
uh, so I think for me, like, not even just the games of service, but if you look at short-term games, I mean, games like Call of Duty, games like the yearly releases, things like that. I guess you could even say some recent shooters like Battlefield and things like that. They
Mm-hmm.
end up wanting to shoot for that long-term catch, but they really don't hit that plateau. They don't really reach that. And so I think of them more as like a higher money investment, short term turnaround, because at the end of the day, nobody really stays on the, when Call of Duty goes year to year, nobody really stays on the last one for very long, and then everything changes over and the focus becomes on the new game.
Mm-hmm.
I know this is the first time that they've actually stopped doing that, which is great. They started supporting the previous game and the new one, kind of equally together, which
Mm-hmm.
is really cool. I think for the first time for them. But I think the catch is the games of service is like, this is what we're gonna do. It's almost like a beta. You talk about a beta game that comes into production and gets together, and they charge a certain amount, and everybody gets in on it. Like PUBG, for instance, when it first came out,
Mm-hmm.
or like these games, you could pluck many of them. I mean, Escape from Tarkov still in beta phase at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think it wasn't the original Fortnite when it came out, like in a beta state still until they like.
It was early access, I think, till like last year. It was like an early access for like at least 2 years.
Yeah, so games like that, I think the draw is like you're gonna learn and grow with it,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's really something that's cool because like you like to see that as a gamer.
Mm-hmm.
You like to get in on a game, and with these very very high AAA polished titles, you don't really see them grow as much, especially if they're really good.
Mm-hmm.
Like for instance, Cyberpunk with all the issues, you're probably gonna get a game like that that's supposed to be the AAA title, the polished thing. You're probably gonna see that game turn from the current partial turd status that it is now and probably grow and become something much better, and then over the series get even better and better.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that's an exception, but for these games of service, thinking about like the Division 2 doesn't start off the box great. There's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of content that's down the pipeline, and the Division 1 and Division 2 have a DLC. They're almost like expecting you have to expect that that's what they're leaning on to push the series forward. And so those experiences, I think, for me, really hook me in because I'm thinking more long term, and I'm going to be able to play with friends online longer and longer, and it's just like it feels like the start of something new every time. And that's why I said it. So the question was about falling for it. Was I think we do because you want that ever growing community that's going to stay around a long time, and you
Mm-hmm.
don't get that. You get the Division, what, it last a few years, and then the sequel came out,
Yeah.
and then I mean I was hardcore into that. I put a lot of time into that, and then I didn't really have the friends community or buddies that played it actively enough to stay in it long
Mm-hmm.
term, and so I think it kind of faded out for me. But yeah, the draw is definitely like the loot boxes, the legendary items that you can collect and things like that. That's kind of cool. It kind of keeps drawing you back into the fold.
Yeah, and I think you're right where it's like I think any game developer wants to have a live community for
Hmm.
as long as they can. And honestly, like you take a game like PUBG, which is not very popular in North America, but you look at like an Asian league, you know, European league, there's still an esports scene for PUBG. And I think with that being said, when you look at some of these games that you are like quote unquote think are dead, you know, in reality the game's still popular, just might not be popular in your region, which I personally think is really kind of a good thing and a bad thing. You know, when you take that into consideration, look at League of Legends. League of Legends, a majority of their champions are female anime style champions now. Very few like beast or monster characters in their mobile version. And the reason is because in Asia, mobile games are way more popular. And so they cater to that demographic. PUBG, same exact thing. A lot of their skins are very bright, vibrant skins, you know, like neon, you know, they've got these like cat ear skins and stuff like that. And that caters to the demographic over in the Pacific League for PUBG, you know, and by doing that, they change the game to cater to the audience that is still there, you know. And as an American player, I don't mind it because I'm Asian and I like some of that stuff still. But I know I've got a couple of friends who look at League of Legends and are like, why would they make this new hero or this new champion this way? Why would they put this skin into PUBG instead of this person's skin? And the thing that you have to realize as a consumer is that you might want something, but the developer has to go based off of the bottom line, you know, at the end of the day of which direction artistically they go or in development they go. And with these games that you grow with or start out with when it's like an early access game, I think what really hurts it is as a streamer myself, I think honestly what kind of hurts it is the streamers, the content creators. In reality, I hate to say it because majority of the time we just play for entertainment, play for fun, but you get pro players, people who are an extremely high skill set, who are above average players, people who are super serious and want to become pro players or become content creators, who go into a first person shooter like Fortnite or something like that or PUBG and learn a mechanic that was never supposed to be abused, and then they have to patch, they have to change it, and they have to take time away from this development plot line that they had to fix this mistake because it is ruining the game. And that is the downside to, I think, early access titles now, is that you have this beta testing phase, which is not no longer behind closed doors. Before, people used to be like, oh, I want to be a video game tester because it was like a secret world of, oh, I have no idea what's going on behind closed door. Now that it's much more publicized, the end game that you get years down the road is dramatically changed and altered because the community interacts with it much more differently than before.
Mhm.
For instance, Black Ops, or not Black Ops, Cold War, their design was not to nerf guns. Their design was to balance guns by increasing power of other guns. And so in doing so, like, you have to reduce recoil and shred recoil off certain guns in order to bring up another gun. You have to be able to adjust this and that. Whereas in Modern Warfare, they barely tweak their guns. M4 was still pretty god tier throughout the entire life of the series. Since day one, M4 was pretty god tier and still used in competitive play. And it was because they didn't try to bring up other guns to outcompete the M4. They just slightly adjusted the M4 on one or two things, and then just naturally as the meta shifted, as eventually they were able to tweak out one or two things in other guns, it got more balanced. But they didn't bring up a gun to compete with the M4 like you would see in Modern Warfare 3, where like the ACR was the best gun in the game, and then they buff up the fire rate of the M16 and damage of the M16 on a triple burst, and it's a one burst kill, whereas the Type 95 was always a one burst kill. And so to counteract the Type 95, they thought we'll just do that with the M16 as well. And then the M16 is just a lower leveled required Type 95. So there's, when it comes to fixing the game in the early stages, I'm getting off on a tangent here. Sorry. It's more publicized now, so you have a lot more people to pull from.
Mhm.
And that's where the games as a service, you have to almost look at it as you are testing the game. You know,
Mhm.
I think now games are and then we talked about this in is it a downloadable cop out episode where I said patches, are patches a good thing or a bad thing? I think it's much harder to say now because there are things that are game breaking. Um, like in Warzone where you were able to stim yourself in the smoke infinitely, that
Hmm.
glitch. That's a game breaking bug. That should not be in the game. Like you got to patch that. But were you ever going to discover that with closed door beta testers? You know,
Right.
who's to say? You know, Destiny. There was uh, really early in Destiny 2. There was a Golden Gun mechanic where Golden Gun, I believe it was Golden Gun it had a super huge hitbox on its six shot, but it had a smaller hitbox on its four shot, and they had to fix that because if you had like I think it was Celestial Nighthawk or something like that, in a certain class up, you still got like six shots. Like there was like a really broken mechanic, very short time for Destiny, where like there would be like a possible glitch where you would instead of having four shots, you'd have six shots. So like Celestial Nighthawk gave you one shot, like with more damage, but then like because the hitbox is bigger on that one shot or whatever, like it gives you actually like four shots. It's weird. Like there's some weird things like that where like the game has unintentional things, and it's crazy. There's a lot of stuff like that you see in games now where you shouldn't have this, or if you have um like a smoke out, and you're shooting a guy and then you get shot, you drop your smoke immediately, they get flashbanged. Or if you have a flashbang out and you run around a corner, the second the guy looks at you, he's flashbanged. There's things like that in games where the pay to service, you're paying to be a beta tester almost.
Hmm.
Sorry. Went off on a tangent there. Went on a tear.
No, that's perfectly. That's a lot of information to share that most people really don't understand, and I do have playing with you. I have seen a lot of that as well. It actually is a good thing you brought that up because if you want to talk about something weird or stuff that's like not supposed to happen, I guess
Yeah.
we could dive into our next topic,
Mhm.
which is everybody in the gaming community know who plays online games. You face some form of cheating here, there,
Yeah.
everywhere. It just depends on what it is. Now we see that more in the culture of the first person shooters. There has been cheating run rampant in all online gaming, depending on what you're looking at, depending on people using hacking software, using like infinite health cheats, things of that nature.
Mhm.
We've recently dealt with that quite a bit in the past, I guess you could say several years, close to a decade when it comes to online shooting games community. And it seems like it's become such a widespread problem now where I remember in the early years of say the original Modern Warfare. There was no hacking in the game. To me, when I played it online, it was clean, it was fun, it was difficult and challenging because it was new for someone like me, but it was a lot of fun. It was very clean, and then typically in the life cycle of a Call of Duty game, after the life cycle, you would see and start to see the issues progress where you would see the games being overrun by cheaters and hackers,
Mhm.
um, because they were not actively tracking the servers anymore. They were still up, still available, but the online cheating was getting ridiculous at that point after a cycle of a game, like after the lifespan's done and that there's a new game out and you try to go back and play the old game, it's just hack city. It's ridiculous. But now we're seeing this live when games launch. We're seeing
Mhm.
people, hacking the statistics and hacking and using advantage taking glitches and programs. And I don't know the 100,000 whatever specifics of the things that are out there, but you see things like people with the auto aim and people aim snapping and people tracking through walls and those kinds of things. And for me, I kind of want to hear your feedback on like what's driving that cheating culture.
Mhm.
I know I have a take on it, but I'm definitely interested to hear yours. What's driving the cheating culture, and why is it just happening so much now, and why is it such a prevalent thing?
Yeah. Uh, I think with cheating, before I do that, when I was talking about the Celestial Nighthawk thing, I realized that I said hitbox. I meant to say that Celestial Nighthawks, instead of doing six times damage, it got reduced to three times damage for Gambit. Uh,
Oh,
I
okay.
did not mean to say hitbox. I meant to say damage. Sorry. So I misspoke on that. But what I was saying pretty much with that kind of also ties into the cheating aspect is you want to have players who can be the best, So you
Mhm.
you find things like the Celestial Nighthawk, and then in Gambit you stack it with another hunter, and you can do massive damage, which is why they fixed it and they nerfed it down to three times damage. And there's things like that where they adjust it. Well, with cheating, it's the same exact thing as wanting to be able to stack abilities. It's someone who wants to be able to perform the best, you know? Uh, and that's kind of where I personally have a no tolerance for cheaters playing collegiately.
Mhm.
Like, you know, it's one of those things where I take the time to dedicate and learn proper aim, proper mechanics, proper call outs in CS. Like, spent hours just learning where to throw grenades, where to throw smokes. And then in Overwatch, I learned like counters, good positioning, and stuff like that. And I think with cheaters, they don't have to spend the time to and the dedication to do that. You know, you can just have something where it's like an aim assist or an aim bot, you know, or vision. That's the big one. You can take a bad player with like an aim bot, you know, and stick him on any map, and yeah, they can do decently. But if you take a good player and give them wall hacks, then you've pretty much you've made a monster more or less, honestly, because for most pro level players or collegiate competing athletes who play esports, the more knowledge you have of an enemy's position, you that can make or break a gunfight. If I know a guy's gonna push me on the left side first, and I have a guy in a fun gunfight with me on the right, I know I can pull off this and shoot this guy first on the left side and take this guy out, eliminate this threat, and move to position to get a better fight for the peak on the right side, you know. But if I don't have that vision, I might win the 1v1 gunfight on the right side, but I've left my left flank open and I've been traded, you know. And so that's where cheating on wall hacks and stuff like that really might give someone an advantage where they look at it as, okay, it's not the worst thing. I'm not aimbotting, you know. That's not unfair. It's still my skill to aim and look there, but they're they have an unfair advantage as far as knowledge goes. And I think what drives them is either A, the want to get better, you know, or B, to be better than they actually are. And in both cases, that's not necessarily a it's not a bad thing to want to be better or to be the best. But one of the things I think, especially with hacking, is it removes the the responsibility of the player, you know,
Mhm.
to get better themselves, especially with aimbot and wall hack. And that's for me the big thing is like if you're using it to understand positioning, understand player movement, there's theater mode for that, you know. There's ways
Mhm.
to get around that. You can learn recoil patterns by just playing the game and taking time to practice that. And I really think that hackers just want a simple game. They just want a game on easy, you know. And the thing is that if you're a hacker, the thing that you don't want is to be a hacker and go against better players, because eventually you're going to get into good enough lobbies where the players are good enough to counteract you, you know. I mean, unless you're a pro player hacking, then that's pretty close to unstoppable, honestly. But
Mhm.
I mean, in that sense, what you really want as a hacker is to play normally and then just really hope that skill based matchmaking is good for you. Play against around people your level. You don't need to win every single game, you know. And that's the big thing, is that I think also a lot of people have egos, you know. Like, I mean, if your win loss is around 50%, that's fine, you know. I mean, in Call of Duty, like my win loss is like zero point 0.7, which is like, I mean, it doesn't mean to win every single game, you know. So it's like a zero point 0.7 win loss, you know, 70%. That's not bad, you know. But then that for me is not necessarily like my determining factor of fun. You know, like I've other, like,
Mhm.
did I do good in the match? Like, did I have fun in the match? Did I get a cool feed? Did I do a cool little kill spree here? Like, that's what for me is fun. And if the hacker's idea of winning is fun, you know, then they're really, I think, looking at the wrong way. You know, I'm not trying to defend hackers or cheaters. I think that perma banning, you know, hardware banning is needed and it should be there. But at the same time, if you really think about like what is driving them, you know, it's either A, they just want to be better than everyone else and like ruin other people's fun, which is not a good person. So you should ban them, or they want to get better and they don't want to put the time in, which is like steroids. It's like cheating. So get them out of there. You know, I still think you should ban everybody who cheats personally. But what
Yeah,
about you?
absolutely.
What do you think on that?
So I know talking with you about this previously, and just for the folks at home, a little side tip: this is our second shoot
Oh
here
yeah.
on this episode because of my sudden power failure yesterday, which was just absolutely bonkers. Um, but so basically, for me, it's like, yeah, they should be banned. They should have their GPU should be tracked and banned as well, like
Mhm.
like we talked about before,
Yeah.
not just software, not IP, because you can get around that. You can use the VPN. I really think that there should be a way to ban their hardware and make anybody who wants to cheat, especially when it comes to money tournaments, they should have to buy another computer, get caught, and get that banned, and then have to go forth back and forth again. I think what drives it in culture is there is a deeper underlying issue, and by no means am I justifying hacking and cheating because it's BS. It should be dealt with accordingly.
Mm.
I don't think Call of Duty, I don't think Activision, I don't think any of them take it serious enough to punish them enough, because maybe there's limitations, and I don't want to speak to like they're not doing their job, but I think they're kind of slapping them on the wrist, slapping them on the hands very softly. um, what I think is driving this is this underlying issue of years ago when you had the games, you used to get play of the game. You used to get like, it used to just focus on final kill.
Mhm.
And that was usually just like a determining thing of, okay, who got the final kill. And it was always funny and comical to like see, you shoot through a wall and kill two guys at once.
Mhm.
And it was a glitch, but it worked and you won.
Mhm.
But they turned it into, like, I think it was Black Ops that turned it into, oh, who's won? The top dog number one and
Mhm.
number two and number three. I think that social pressure to be the best has started in video games like that. And I think if we're just talking about online shooters and the competitiveness, you look at the cash tournaments that are going on all the time, and you look at the big names in streaming who are just light years above everybody else.
Mhm.
The Doctor Disrespects, the Stone Mountain 64s. They're putting off 360 no scope headshots, and they're just all out seasoned veterans of these games. They know what they're doing. They're having fun. But these kids and these younger people and anyone who does this is, I don't know if it's partially they just want to be like them, or they
Mhm.
want to fit. They feel the pressure of wanting to be the best, and they want to elevate their game. But whatever the case may be, end of the day, it's ruining things for people like me who just want to be a casual online gamer. And I'm a hardcore gamer when it comes to offline games and like uh, intellectual games, but when it comes to these casual shooters,
Mhm.
I'm just a casual gamer to these casual shooters, and I just don't like having to get online and deal with this
Mhm.
when I work all day, I bust my ass at work, I come home, and I want to get online. And you've dealt with this too.
Yeah.
You get online, you just want to have fun, and you're going up against a lobby of sweats who are either hacking, um, playing so sweaty that they're just like they're on some pressure grind to win and to show off and to make a highlight clip,
Yep.
or you're just bombarded with these people who are cheating, and it just takes the fun right out of it, because your stick skill, your gun skill was better to beat them if they didn't have that.
Yeah.
And so that's like super frustrating for me. Last night, thankfully, I had one of the best games I think I've had in Call of Duty, just jumping online and having fun with Aaron, our good friend, and just having a good time. I didn't really run into too much or anything like that, which was refreshing, which was nice for a change. But I shouldn't have to wait and do that every 3 months, to step away for 3 months and then come back
Mhm.
and have a great match. I should be able to play daily if I want to
Yep.
and not have to deal with that.
Yeah.
And so I just want that to go out there for them, for everybody who cheats, to understand you are absolutely being a cancer in the gaming community, and you are absolutely ruining very good moments that people are having to placate to your own, whatever it is, psyche or ego, like you said,
Mhm.
that you have to win and have to be the best. Because at the end of the day, when I see your epic kill and you've pulled off some John Wick type crap, and it's totally impossible, let me tell you, I've sat underneath this man here and watched many of his final kills, and he pulls off John Wick stick skill, mouse and keyboard, like you would not believe, and I know for a fact that he's not cheating.
Mhm.
So but yeah, your skill is something to behold, and I know you're shy and you kind of humble about that, but yeah, that's just, it ruins it for people. like me who just are casual and who just want to have a good time.
Mhm. And I think one of the things is like when you play against the so-called tryhard, I think I'm not upset with tryhards as much as I think other people are. I mean, there's times where it's like, okay, you're using in Battlefield 3 the AS-12 or the was it the AA-12, that semi-auto shotgun or whatever it was the Sega or whatever it was.
Yeah,
Uh,
the saga. Yeah,
Saga,
yeah.
yeah, that thing could shoot down helicopters, I swear. But it was so overpowered. That is that is something where I kind of get a little upset about. Where it's like, oh, that's such a cheesy gun. But in reality, I could use that gun as well. Would it be as
Hmm.
fun? Not necessarily. So when it comes to hackers versus tryhards, I'd rather have tryhards at the end of the day.
Oh, yeah.
Uh, and I just want to say this because I think at the end of the day, we all want to try. The point of the video game
Hmm.
is to try to have fun. So if you're trying to win and that's how you have fun, or if you're trying to get a cool kill with something, you know, at the end of the day, I don't fault you for trying. Um, but hacking, I think, is something where it's a little bit less of a gray line for me because it's blatant. Either you're doing it or you're not doing it. But here's something for you. So there's a cyclist who it's e-cycling. You know how they have like iCard or whatever it is, like the online racing. So this guy is doing a cycling race. Now he has to cycle himself, but in this game there's like a cyber cycle, like a Tron cycle or something like that. In order to obtain it, like you have to do certain missions or whatever. Well, everybody in the tournament pretty much used this cycle, but the guy who won the tournament uh, had someone play his account in order to unlock the cycle for him. Now, that's technically cheating, but he still did the event, still cycled in real life during the event, and still won against everybody else who had the same bike. But he cheated in order to get a bike to put him on a level playing field. Do you think that guy? He got stripped of his title and everything. Do you think that case of cheating is as severe? Do you think then cheating is a gray line? It's not so black and white. What do you think on that?
That's a great point. That's actually I wasn't expecting that. Thank you.
Yeah,
Uh, so it adds to the moral gray area, gray line. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, it kind of
like we
sucks.
like we talked about before. It's I understand the need to be competitive and the need to get that edge, and for me not being savvy as to what these programs are, and I know there's some on console with the controller like attachment, and then there's some with on computer where there's these actual programs.
Mm-hmm.
Like I get the need why they need to do it. They need to compete. There's always a competitive driving force with these pros who put on these productions and these kill montages that these guys feel like the need to do it, and it does create a moral gray area. And I'm glad you brought that up to add that to the podcast because it is a moral gray area. I mean, if you look at the days of if you go offline for a minute and you go to a different subject, if you look at Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, that game was not as fun as it was with cheats.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
When you have infinite jet fuel and infinite rockets and all that other stuff. So, sometimes those games were more fun, but I think sometimes people lose the gray area where that stuff should be kept offline, especially when there's competitions and
yep,
especially when everyone needs to have the same advantage to make it fair. And then they're taking that opportunity away from you and you can't do anything about it. And so I do think there is a moral gray area for sure. And in that case of the guy for Tron, I mean, at the end of the day, as to speak to why he didn't compete to get that, I don't know. But
yeah,
him to be able to prove that he could still do it with it and be better than everybody else, I mean, he proved it. So what
yeah.
is there to, what is there to really slap him about? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm like, where I say like, hacking is kind of like black and white. Like you hacked or not you hacked, but you cheated or you didn't. So he did
Mm-hmm.
cheat. So I do think he should be stripped of his title. But you still have to question it. You at the same time because it's like he is a professional cycler at that level. Like
Mm-hmm.
like he can still do that. The only thing that he cheated to get was the bike in order that he used. Like, what if he had used any other bike? Yes, he would have had a disadvantage compared to like the other people. But the fact is that physically, in my personal opinion, he is the pinnacle of an athlete. Like he's still able to do that. Now he did cheat, So yes, titles should be stripped. But at the same time, it's like as someone who who has played hockey for years and then goes and plays NHL like on the PlayStation, I can understand like in that situation where like my knowledge of hockey in the real world does not necessarily translate to how good I am on like a PlayStation or Xbox game, because there's nothing in reality other than gap control that's the same. But in a cycling game, you are actually cycling. Like he's actually on that bike. So for me, I'm kind of at the same time, I'm like, if anything, that's like it's harder. It's a harder, more demanding video game. And for me, the athlete inside of me is like still kind of siding with him because he still had to do it. But at the same time, it's like the black and white in me is like he cheated. So by my morals, I have to say that he should not deserve it. And that's really
Hmm.
tough for me. I'm very black and white with cheating. You cheated or you didn't. Uh,
Yeah.
there's no there's no gray line. But as far as the athlete side of me, I'm trying to like I don't know, like but I think at the end of the day they did the right thing. Removed the title, took away the prize money, made him issue an apology, but it's really close. It's really close to the
Hmm.
point of you know is it really? It would be like paying somebody to get your Overwatch account to Diamond, you know, so that you could play in a Diamonds and Up tournament, and then you still win the tournament regardless with your own skill. You know, is you are by you buying that account, is that really cheating? To Because you're still able to beat other Diamond players, whatever Diamonds and Ups, and that's kind of where I think the moral dilemma comes in. Is like he cheated, but on a level playing field, same skill set, beat everybody, you know. But in order to get there, you cheated. So close the door on it. That's what sucks about it. Personally, I think.
Yeah, it takes the stigma. It's almost like a stigma. It just takes the fun out of it. And
Yeah.
for me, when you're talking about like sports athletes and heroes and people getting caught taking steroids and it's cheating, it's cheating, it's cheating. My opinion, now that I've gotten a little bit older and it's come full circle to me, is a lot of my favorite childhood baseball heroes ended up in the steroid scandals. But if you think about why they did, a lot of it was because of recovery and because of being out to these mega contracts
Mm-hmm.
and needing to be on the field. And like Roger Clemens, Andy Pettitte, two of the greatest Hall of Fame pitchers to ever play the game, both took steroids,
Yeah.
both doped each other up to try to recover to get back on the pitching mound to play because, and it wasn't about necessarily the money they were missing. It was about the competitive nature to get on the field, get their butts in the game
Mm-hmm.
because those two guys were like studs on the mound. And it's like, if you're not out there, your team's not going to win. And you feel that pressure to play. And to me, like Barry Bonds, especially Barry Bonds, not a lot of people knew, but behind the scenes, he dealt with a lot of health issues, and he was always in pain, and he was always having knee injuries, arm injuries, things like that. And so he took steroids to get himself back into shape, to help cut the recovery time down, and to help get back out on the field and to repair and rebuild. And that's what they did. And so to me, I'm not. It's no more gray area for
Mm-hmm.
me. I don't have a problem with any of it as long as it's getting them back on the field and they're not trying to make a competitive edge to hit 70 home runs and that's the reason why they're doing it. That's different, but it's the same moral gray area for me. But with I guess it just depends on the stage and the spectacle that becomes of it is to I guess the judging factor as to what happens for me. And I don't hold anything against them wanting to get back out there because as you get older, you put on weight when you don't mean to, and your body doesn't heal as fast as it does. And so maybe this cycler guy, he might not have been able to physically handle the full weight of doing the entire thing
Mm-hmm.
by himself, and maybe that's why he did it. Who knows? So, or maybe, hey, in fact, there's a thought. Maybe some other people cheated, and never got found out.
Oh yeah, true.
So there's always that too, and that's why I just stay clear, keep my head up, and stay clean, and just do my best to just have fun at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It's that's why I don't enter these Call of Duty tournaments. Not only because I know I can't win, but if I did have the stick skill to do it, I just don't think that spending money to compete for a bigger prize when there's always people that are better out there and have a better advantage than you because of their experience, their equipment, their hardware, all this other stuff. It's just not worth it.
Yeah.
To me.
And that was one of the things that like playing collegially, I was like, oh, let's just see where it goes. And you play your first season and it's like, okay, like you look at your stats and you're like, okay, I did decent, and then as you continue on, you're like, okay, like I should be at this level, but then you realize that you're only playing against other collegiate players. You're not playing against professionals. You're not playing against guys who are amateurs or amateur professionals, like not in
Mm-hmm.
collegiate league, because sometimes those players don't even go and play in a TESPA league, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and some of them don't even play TESPA. Some of them play Collegiate Star League or something like that instead of TESPA, because TESPA is sanctioned by Blizzard. So then there's like a collegiate league that's like completely separate that isn't sponsored, I think, by TESPA. It's weird. I know I played TESPA, so I don't know what the other league's called. But for instance, we had a guy who's a top 500 player from Madison who played in TESPA with us, you know. But he's like, if you go play Collegiate Star League, he's like, there's at least 3 or 4 top 500 players on each team, you know. And it's like crazy to think about that, you know. And that just really kind of sucks at the end of the day, is because you're like, oh, in the small pond I'm in, you might be good, but in the grand scale of things, you might not be anywhere near the ocean. You might still be on a little backyard pond for all you know, you know. So I think that's something else, is that, you know, when it comes to seeing the grand scale of like skill level, I think sometimes that's why people might resort to cheating, is that they realize that they're not where they are and they can't come to terms with that. Or you'd be like me and you realize that you're not gonna ever go pro and you're fine with that, you know? Because I'm just like, yeah, honestly, at the end of the day, it's like, what was I gonna do? Honestly, as a pro gamer, what are you gonna do when you're 65? You know, like
Yeah.
that can't be good for your fingers. You know, all day, every day, like, you know, strafe peeking's gotta hurt after a while.
Oh yeah, you'll have carpal tunnel and
Spoon hands, as I call it. But the
spoon hands.
I kind of got a funny story about baseball steroid users. It's not really funny. It's more sad, if anything. It's actually kind of funny. So my uncle Harry is really a really big Brewers fan. Like, he gets into Johnson Controls Center and stuff like that. I don't want to call out his last name because I don't want them to remove this from him. But so you know Ryan Braun, right? Obviously, if you don't know who Ryan Braun is, he's a decent brewer. We overpay him. Not a big Brewers fan. Don't really follow baseball like that. But at least even I know who he is. But anyways, goes up to Ryan Braun as he's like signing stuff for like season ticket holders, and he goes, "I know you didn't do it." I kid you not, man. 2 days later, he comes out and admits that he did it. It was like the worst thing. If at Thanksgiving,
Wow.
I'm like, so he didn't do it, huh? And he's just like, shut up. Oh, it was so bad, you know. And that's the worst part about cheaters, is that it's not just you and the people you play against that you're hurting. It's your fans that believe in you. Honestly, at the end of the day, you know. But no, the timing was so horrible. Maybe that's what caused him to come out and admit it. He's like, oh man, that middle-aged man just hit me right here in the heart, you know.
Got me in the feels,
got
man.
got Ryan Braun right in the feels and made him admit it. Like, I don't know.
But I mean, at the end of the day, for Ryan Braun, he came out and admitted it. Okay, so if he stopped usage, dude, he's still raking. I mean, up until this past season, he's had MVP caliber seasons ever since. And it's like, you know, now the Brewers let him go. They didn't offer him a contract.
Good,
they declined him. So he's gone. He's a free agent finally.
We had to pay for that stupid American Family sign somehow. God, don't get me started.
Well, I mean, we could make a whole sports podcast. We don't want to take any thunder away from our buddies, so let's we'll leave it at that. But but yeah. So I guess with that being said, man, I guess we could head over and take a breather, kick our feet up, and head to our save point. What do you think?
Yeah, for sure. Matt, this week we have a comment from Sir Solna on our YouTube channel. Thank you so much, Sir Solna, for reaching out to us. We appreciate the comment, and much love to you as well. I remember the games Tecmo Bowl and NHL Hockey on the original Nintendo, but I also remember the original Gauntlet. It was fun, and it felt endless at the time of its release. I kind of miss the old Gauntlet games, but they don't make multiplayer games on the same console much anymore. That is true. We talked about it on our Couch Co-op episode, where we talked about like what's missing now with Couch Co-op and why is it kind of leaving, and the convenience of Couch Co-op. But yes, NHL Hockey was my childhood. Tecmo Bowl, you know, gosh, you could run back 30 yards and throw 70 yards like right in the hands, like every single time. Who is it? Bo Jackson. Oh, just run around with Bo Jackson all day.
Well, I mean, one of us did that to one of the other not too long ago.
Hey, dude, I gotta cheese it sometimes. I'm sorry.
Oh, that was so funny. You brought back memories of past friends doing that, and just frustrating me to no end. Running it back like 70 yards, then passing for 60, and then gaining 30. It's like, what?
Yeah,
This isn't playground football.
yeah. So
I love Tech Mobile, man. I grew up on that. So
yeah, so we're playing Tech Mobile, and the first play Matt does. Now, mind you, I've got Bo Jackson on my team, so I'm expecting to pass. I'm expecting to run. So I just, I got the option to run. His first play is a running play. I'm like, who runs in Tecmo Bowl? You don't have Bo Jackson. Like, who in their right mind runs in Tecmo Bowl? And he ran it for like 30 yards because I was in a freaking pass formation. They give you one of two options: pass or a run play. And I picked wrong, and the guy got to run for 30 yards.
I think you didn't do it justice, man. I mean, I sit there and I run up the middle, get 30 yards, and you're like, who the heck runs in Tech Mobile? It's just like you were so perplexed that I threw the running play out the gate.
Yeah, I was just so blown away. I'm like, Tecmo Bowl. It's an iconic 100-yard pass play game. You run all the way
Yep.
back to your own end zone. That I was just so surprised. And of course, it's the like it's just like the little arcade song. It's playing.
That was actually a good replication, man. That was pretty
I
good.
think it's ingrained in my brain. I was born in '95, man, so I think that game's actually older than me. I don't know. You gotta look that up.
Oh yeah, it's definitely older than
Oh,
you.
really? Is it? Oh gosh.
Oh yeah, I was playing Tech Mobile in the late '80s for sure.
Oh jeez. Not to age you, or not to not to call out
I
your
mean,
age.
I'm pretty sure it was before the early '90s, so it had to be late '80s for sure. We can look that up.
Did you ever play
I'll
Gauntlet?
let you. Yeah, so while you looked it up, I'm pretty sure it's what you're doing. Gauntlet, yeah, I had my first experience with Gauntlet was in the arcade, and
jeez.
I remember the arcade cabinet, and I was playing on Gauntlet and having a blast as a kid, and things like Mortal Kombat and stuff like that in the arcade. And funny story from the arcade, my first major experience, I'm playing, having a blast. I mean, I was playing the Ninja Turtle arcade cabinet.
Oh, I
as
love
well.
that one.
And then somebody drops lights a fart bomb at the door and the entire arcade gags and everybody runs out the arcade. And I was sitting there still trying to play. I was like, I'm not leaving. I'm having fun, so that was my first romp at an arcade, is somebody clearing it out with a fart bomb at the door.
Okay, so this Gauntlet, the Gauntlet game that I've played is Dark Legacy. Gauntlet Dark Legacy. I played it actually on my birthday, which this is gonna sound real sad. You didn't show up to. I invited you, and you didn't show up to my birthday party at the Garcade.
You're so full of crap, man.
No, but me, Kylie, and my buddy Snell, we all played Gauntlet at the arcade, and that's the only time I think I've ever played Gauntlet. I've heard about it a lot, but that was the only time I've ever experienced it, and I just remember stepping on spikes, and I don't know who designed these medieval spikes, but those things were just spring loaded, just like it's coming out. It's like there's no way to escape them. There's no way to escape those spikes. It's like, oh, let me just redeploy 50 times. I'm like, that type of mechanical ability in the medieval times, that was impressive. You could have made the floating gardens, or what is it, the Babylonian gardens or whatever, within a week if you had that technology. You could have just drilled out whatever you wanted if you had that technology. But no, not just in that game apparently. However, Tecmo Bowl, I had to look it up. Yeah, 1987. Ooh, gosh, that was. Oh, I left a review for that game actually. Oh no, I didn't. Okay, it showed my name. It's like reviews, and it said my name. I'm like, what? I left a review for that game? But no, it's saying I could leave a review, which I will not do right now. But anyways, Matt, that was our comment for the week. Thank you again, Sir Sona, for the comment. We do appreciate that. If you guys
Absolutely
want to leave a comment, you can always reach out to us on our social medias at Dis2Digital. That's Dis with a K, as you all know by now. I'm not going to say the pun that I always do. But anyways, guys, if you don't want to reach out to us on social medias, you can always reach out to us on our Discord. Link will be in the description. Or you can simply comment on our YouTube videos or Podbean, wherever you decide to watch this, or join our Facebook group where we discuss and share pretty much anything gaming related. A couple memes here and there, but other than that. But yeah, if you reach out to us on our Discord, we're always in there. Feel free to pop on in. You can just chill, play with us, ask us to play. It depends on the mood I'm in. If you guys can play with us or not, depends. Maybe not. But no, for the most part, me and Matt are pretty cool to play with. Whoever pops into Discord. If you got the game we got, feel free to. Don't go out and buy the game just to play with us. We'll find a game that we mutually all own. Don't feel like you're obligated to buy the game that we own. Just saying. Unless you want to buy a game on our partner over at Humble Bundle and it happens to be on sale, where you can buy games at a great reduced rate, but you can also give to a great charity. Our partner happens to be Holt International Adoption Services, where I was adopted from. You can get yourself a little Brett, if you want to donate through Holt International, and you can save yourself some money on games. Why not give to a great cause with Humble Bundle? You like that transition there, Matt?
I did.
Yeah, I just
hard to follow. Got to let you push us on to the end of the show here.
That was just off the cuff. I just thought of it right as I was thinking about it. I did a great transition right there. But anyways, closing off here, Matt. I mean, online gaming. We talked mainly about like the gaming community, but I think really the focus is, online gaming as like in general, like the community is obviously there, and there's a lot of things that need to be changed in the gaming community. But outside influences on that, social media, how do you think that portrays the video game community? For instance, like let's look at how the media portrays first-person shooters in a negative light. Do you think that exterior communities looking in to the gaming community shapes what it is, or do you think they look at us the way we are because of the way the community is?
That's a great question. It's a great way to frame it. I think that for outside looking in, I think people are starting to understand. I've firsthand witnessed with parents who are very reluctant to have their kids play games because of the stereotypes and the derogatory kind of downplay that gaming receives, changing their mind and saying, "Oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm letting him play this," but I'm overwhelmed with how it's helping this kid socialize with other kids who he can't do in public because of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm witnessing it firsthand, going, "Wow, this is really definitely turning around because this wouldn't have happened 20 years ago for sure." Mm-hmm. And I think, to be perfectly honest, outside communities looking in, I don't think we really care what they think anymore. I think it's more or less just like we're doing our own thing. We're creating these communities. And to be positive, now we've talked about the negative side of online gaming and people taking advantage, but I've seen an overwhelming majority of online communities being positive. And I mean, now you've got your Facebooks and your Twitters and Instagrams and Tumblrs and Discord communities. Everyone's coming together. You got Reddit is a big one. People come together. People share free DLC codes with each other, free game codes for actual full downloads. Mm-hmm. They share tips, tricks. People on YouTube make all these cool videos of how-tos and how to do this and how to do that to help each other out. And people like your good friend Snow, who comes in and lets me know how to get this special weapon in Assassin's Creed. So it's like the gaming community I just have seen have really come together and made it all about a community and making everybody enjoy the game and helping each other. And I think that does not get enough media attention, get enough credit, because I think the unfortunate things that happen in society, that's all you see on the news. You see people fighting on YouTube, people getting their channels nuked because they're fighting and they're making ridiculous career decisions on YouTube or social media. Instead of what should be getting shown is that the gaming community is coming together and helping prevent suicides, and helping prevent people from being alone, and helping prevent the dark side of reality and society rearing its ugly head and prevailing. And I think a lot of people were there for me. You were there for me in my dark times, and you helped to shed some light on the positivity part. You helped me turn things around and look at life in a different light. And you brought me a community of your own friends into this. And the days of our Overwatch, I probably have never had a better gaming experience in my life playing with you on a team with Overwatch with What was it, TJ and
TJ X.
Ed and
Yeah,
Eddie and everybody all
yeah.
together rolling and having fun. And that's what I miss, is that camaraderie and the teammates and the positivity we all had, helping each other. Hey, great play. I mean, we all pumped each other up, and we all had flaws, but we all helped each other get better.
Mhm.
And that's what I think the gaming community doesn't get enough, uh, I guess, limelight for, is for people really the positive side of humanity coming out. And that, in a nutshell, I think is something that the gaming community deserves, is that they've stuck together through thick and thin. We got each other through COVID. A lot of us were on lockdown. We got webcams. We got set up.
Mhm.
We all started streaming. And it's just been like a completely life changing experience. And without the gaming community, I don't think that would have happened.
Yeah. I think from the outside looking in, I was talking to this with my buddy Taylor, who's a really good friend of mine. Uh, right before the podcast, we were talking about like high school, and I pointed out to him that I'm like, all the kids I hung out with in high school, like, yeah, they played video games, but whenever I wanted to play video games with people, like no one wanted to play. So I really didn't have that many gamer friends, you know? And it wasn't like lack of friends. Like it was you're having like 20 some people over at your house for New Year's, and up until recently, no one ever wanted to play one damn game of Mario Kart or one game of Ultimate Chicken Horse. It was always, let's just watch some Netflix, dude. Let's invite the girls over. I'm like, okay, whatever. Can we play some stupid video game? Like that's all I wanted. So look outside looking in that situation, I think that some people look at people who play video games as like not not social, you know. And I think that's the exact opposite. I mean, for me, clearly I was social, you know, but I still wanted to play video games because I still enjoy it. It's like a board game, but except better graphics, you know, less imagination,
Mhm.
you know. And
Mhm.
the other thing is that I've met a lot of my good friends through video games. Other people we played Overwatch with, for instance, Grego Filiak, or Grego, and his roommate actually. I met Ja Joe, uh, Joseph. That's what it was. It was Joseph. His family was in Wisconsin, and what's funny is that he was visiting family, and we had played on PlayStation Overwatch for a little bit, and so I was like, oh, okay, whatever. I'll hang out with him because he asked to hang out one night, so we did, and we're going to a bar, and they asked to see our ID and they scan our ID and stuff like that. And I immediately take out my phone and we FaceTime Greg. So we're at the bar with Greg. Me and him were just drinking, and Greg's in his apartment by himself, just watching me and Joe have a good time. You know, and we're talking to people and we're like, hey, he couldn't come. And then we're explaining that. So there's been situations like that where, you know, through video games, I've met really awesome people. You know, met Aaron that way. You know, met him through Rainbow Six Siege, and met TJ, X, uh, Leisha, um, Janika technically too, but never met her in person. But I mean, I met those people through Overwatch, you know, and I met a lot of those people that way. So I think looking in, people look at it as either they're just antisocial or it's got its own problems as far as society goes, as far as their social ideas, you know. And I think that's true of anywhere, you know. I think video games are just something where it's just another hobby, you know. And whether or not your hobby allows you to play with people online or not, it's no different than if you have a sports hobby, because you'll talk to someone about sports over the phone, you know. The artists will still post videos to TikTok of their art. It's pretty much the same exact thing. Social media has brought people closer together. And I think video games are something where it's just another extension of it. It's not a social media. It's a media and it's social. You know what I mean? It's you know what I mean there. It's not a Facebook or a
Yeah.
Twitter, but it is a media that is social. It is another form of media to be social about, you know. And I
Mhm.
think people should stop looking at video games in a negative context, you know, media with how violent video games are. Honestly, I think video games teach you a lot more than people take for granted, you know. I think
Absolutely.
we talked about in the last episode, it taught me a lot about social skills and just looking at people and understanding someone else's point of view and perspective. But also from video games, I've learned, about economics and stuff like that, where it's something that I would never find interesting, but a video game just does it so well. Civilization, stuff like that. I think the reason why online games have gotten so popular is because you can do almost anything into it,
Hmm.
and there's so many options. And that's, I think, the beautiful thing about it is that they have become no longer just games. They have become a tool to express an art form or to express a message or a story, you know, and that is why they've been growing, is because the medium's changing, you know. Games like Until Dawn, Life is Strange, Little Hope, Man of Medan, these visual stories are like movies, and some people really enjoy that, and I think that's why they'll continue to keep on growing, is because it's no longer just a black and white Mario jumping platformer. It's that, or a movie, or a virtual reality chat. It's now a social platform, you know, because the tools to be whatever you want are there. It can be a 3D modeler, to show you about like construction and stuff like that. You can build rooms and environments and show your clients stuff like that. It's a simulator. There's so many tools that can come from it, and be used, and it's technically a video game, you know. And I think that's why
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think that's why it's really growing. At the end of the day, is because it's no longer just a game. The platform's changed. The technology has gotten too good.
Well, it's an unlimited canvas to help foster unlimited
Yep.
creativity, and ultimately that's what we all have needed most of our life. I mean, you got some people who are just naturally talented at other things, artists who are talented at painting and singing and dancing,
Mhm.
and some of us who are just creative and have these visions that we can't express. We can't write movie scripts. We can't do big ticket things, but at the end of it, we can play an online video game with our creativity, and some people will find a ways to pass levels in a video game that you never even thought of, that you're like, whoa, it's mind-blowing, like, oh, okay,
Mhm.
that's really creative, that's really neat. And yeah, those people do sometimes rise to fame from mediocrity, and their creativity just helps them shine and grow, and kudos to them. But the platform, I think, has exploded because it has brought out all these other people as well, who the online gaming has been able to a place for them to showcase their
Mhm.
creativity. And that's something that I like to do. I like to watch sometimes people's like tips and tricks videos when they find really sneaky clever ways to
Oh,
beat bosses that you never really thought you could, even if it's cheap and cheesy. I still think it's fun because they took the time to divulge that to us. They took the time to figure it out, and it's pretty crazy some of the stuff that they can come up with. Minecraft, you can build
mhm.
endless, mindless structures, and The Sims, you can build really creative houses, and games like that. Really, they do have a lot of publicity, but there isn't really an epic community. There is for Minecraft, but for like things like The Sims, there's not really that huge, epic, all-encompassing community. But they still manage to be entertaining and fun.
Mhm.
And I know on Facebook, like, you got the Borderlands community, the Call of Duty community, the Tom Clancy community, and
Oh,
everybody's doing fun and creative, neat things with their loadouts, their camouflages. They're taking the photo mode, recreating like movie scenes and stuff like
mm,
that. So things like that, that's what's driving it, is creativity and exposure,
mhm.
and the everyone just coming into it to the first time. Just think about that, like, in the average day, there's countless people discovering gaming for the first time, or elderly people picking up a controller to play with their grandchildren for the first time and realizing the potential that video games had.
Yeah.
And my mother-in-law, she, Sharon, she was mind blown how video games had come along, because she used to play the old Marios with her daughter, my wife Jen, and she used to play those games, and the simplistic platform jumpers. And then all of a sudden, I boot up a game like Red Dead Redemption, and she's just mind blown as to the musculature structure of the horses, and the realism that's put into the game and how far graphics have come, and that's something special, and that's something that needs to definitely be celebrated for sure.
Yeah. And one last final note here. You were talking about the community. Yeah, Ghost of Tsushima has a community that has saved over or donated over $50,000 US to restore parts of Japan, ports of Tsushima, uh,
Hmm.
and preserve it, because of the game, because of they look at this world and they've experienced it and they feel like they should preserve it and keep it that way. And so when the community reaches out and does stuff like that, that's a very real world number. $50,000 is a lot of money, you know. And so when you look at it, not money aside, these are people at the end of the day, who really care about something, and that's a community, that's a group of people who can get behind a cause that's good, you know. There's people on Eve Online who are first responders for COVID, and they're very dedicated to their corporations and stuff like that. And people are helping out these people who are Eve Online players, So it's just another example of, I think, the community overall, loving the medium and being, a good community overall to be in. It's a good time to be a gamer, because so many people are gamers, and they're generally good people. You get the bad trolls every now and then, but I think that I would just share a little bit of a light note there at the very end here.
Oh, I love that you shared that. I was so touched by that story when they broke that story a little while
Mhm.
back about the dedication of the fan base donating money to have part of the island restored. And that was just incredible that happened.
Mm.
Because I think it was right around the time I think you just started playing it, right?
Yeah.
I think somewhere
I
around that time.
think I just had gotten like midway through Act 2, and I saw
Mhm.
that and I'm like, okay, you know what? If this game is that good, gotta platinum it, And that was one of the determining factors. I'm like, people obviously like this game so much that they're donating real life money to it, so gotta platinum it.
Mhm.
And it's up there. It's probably my favorite game of 2020. Wait, no, I didn't say it was my favorite game of 2020. Oh no, whatever. I'm not gonna talk about that. We gotta close up here. I think I said, what was the game I said was my game of the year?
You went with man. Well, I guess we'll have to do our own homework
Yeah,
here.
whatever. I'm pretty sure it was. I said Ghost of Tsushima, Last of Us. Oh no, Eve Online or Eve Echoes. I remember it now.
Yeah, Eva
I'm
goes.
such a loser. Anyways, guys, that's about all we have for the show here today. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode of Dis to Digital. If you have any questions on a topic you wish us to read, feel free to comment and reach out to us on our Twitter with the hashtag Dis to Digital.
And guys, don't forget you can also reach out on our Discord channel and our Facebook page where we talk about the things you love and we share some of our greatest gaming experiences.
Yep, feel free to stop on by. And from all of us here at Dis to Digital, I'm Brett Clark.
And I'm Matt Keaton, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.